Hey everybody, Nicole Bowman here, psychic medium and intuitive artist. So I hope that you guys are having a good night so far. I would just like to come on and do some late night readings with you and for you. And we're going to be doing readings a little bit later. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about what's happening in California. It's been on my head, it's been on my heart, it's been on my mind. And I wanted to share some things with you, specifically if you're in California, but also those of you who have friends, who have loved ones, wherever you may be in the world. I'm going to share some information that I think will help you on the path forward. So, about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, I did some predictions on this app where I talked about the Great Migration. And Spirit was showing the years of 2024 and 2025 to be the Great Migration, meaning that people will be moving. They'd be moving from their home country, they'd be moving city to city, they'd be moving state to state, and they would be picking up and they would be creating lives elsewhere. Now, of course, some of this is connected to natural disaster, obviously, but a deeper message and meaning of this is that it is spiritual. We are moving to places that we are more of a vibrational match to, right? So there are a lot of people in California that will stay there and will rebuild. There are people, though, who have made the decision and determination to leave, and they will go elsewhere. So this is a time where whatever you've been working on spiritually, whoever you've been connected with spiritually, you're going to link up more with like-minded people and like-minded souls. And Spirit has continued to say, things are going to get worse before they get better, but they will get better. Now, the way that I read as a psychic medium and intuitive is that I don't sugarcoat. So I'm very direct and I'm very clear about what I'm seeing. We are in the midst of some really difficult times. One of the major reasons that I've talked about planting a garden, having chosen family, plugging into your local community. It is so important, not just to be a part of a group and be part of something, but you need roots, you need people, you need someone to undergird you and fortify you through this difficult time. This is going to be a difficult time economically for a lot of people, but it's by divine design. One of the things the Spirit keeps saying is that this cannot hold anymore. So this life of overconsumption, this life of greed, these things that we have continued to see, especially with the corporate greed, all of that is falling away and breaking down, and we're in the midst of a spiritual awakening. That doesn't mean, though, that it isn't scary. It doesn't mean it's not painful. In fact, it is painful. It's painful because we're birthing a new reality. We're birthing anew. So really, really important to know that. I'm just going to go into the room for a second. I want to say hello to everybody. My name is Nicole Bowman. I'm a psychic medium and intuitive artist. Thank you guys so much for the hearts. I just felt led to come on and do a reading about what's happening in California, but also what's happening in the world at large. And I do feel that some of what Spirit has shared with me is going to give you comfort. Generally, because the way I read, I teach you how to prepare. And if there is a possibility to change an outcome or lessen what appears to be a negative outcome, I teach you how to pray for that, right? One of the reasons that I think watching the news can actually be a good thing is because when you watch the news, you know who to pray for. And I actually just want to do that right now. So if you all can join with me in spirit, let's just close our eyes for a second. And let's imagine a circle of protection around the state of California. If there's somebody you know there, if there's somebody you love there, if you happen to be in California yourself, I want you to visualize the people happy and laughing. I want you to visualize the people in homes with people they love. I want you to visualize the people eating well and repairing their homes and rebuilding. Let's just hold that image just for a few minutes. Just hold it, and hold it, hold it, and it is so. What I just did is a process called creative visualization, where you actively shape your future and you actively shift the energy. And what I just showed you is actually how to manifest. Okay, so we are manifesting a more beautiful and fruitful future for the people in California because that is so necessary. If you are just jumping in and you're brand new to me, my name is Nicole Bowman. I'm a psychic medium and intuitive artist. I'm going to be doing some readings later on in this live by donation. So I'll give you that information a little bit later. But right now, we're talking about California. We're also going to talk about Bad Bunny. We're going to talk about ancestry. And we're going to talk about how all these things are interconnected. So I don't know how much I can share on this app because of the censorship that is so prevalent. But I do want to say this, more information is going to come out about these fireworks, if you will, and specifically what has happened with the fireworks, and that things are not on the up and up, right? So there's things about this that do not feel entirely accidental. I'll put it that way. But at this point in time, it's not about the discovery of that. It's about recovery. I want to make mention of something that I saw here on TikTok. There is a bookshop in California. It's called Book Alley. And they are doing a GoFundMe for the owner because he is trying to rebuild. So on this app, if you could go and follow Book Alley, they're in Pasadena, California. If you could follow the GoFundMe, if you're able to donate, please donate. If you're not able to donate, just share the GoFundMe. I know that everybody is going through difficult things, but it's Book Alley Pasadena, and he is in the process of just getting back on his feet and trying to rebuild. I think the beauty, of what the situation is showing us, if there is any beauty in it, is what happens when we as a people come together. I've lived and traveled all over the world. And one of the things that I continue to marvel at and to take comfort in is the kindness and the beauty that lives inside of so many people. I've met so many people, irrespective of whatever their socioeconomic background is, who are incredibly generous. People who have a lot, people who have a little. So generosity, kindness, and good people really are everywhere. And it's at times of tragedy when we begin to see who people really are. So tragedies, losses, deaths, this has a way of revealing people's true nature. I'm going to go into the room. Team Salem says, it wasn't only rich people, others were affected, may not get their land back. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right about that. I'm African American. I descend from slaves. I descend obviously from European ancestors and indigenous ancestors. But my primary, obviously, as you can see, I'm phenotypically a Black woman. Sorry, whenever I get on the live, my allergies start acting up. I don't know, you guys. I'm sorry. But yes, there is actually a Black community in that area called Altadena, which is a historically Black community. And many of the people have lost their homes and they're not sure if they're going to be able to rebuild because you actually have to get permits in certain places to be able to rebuild. So one of the things also I want people to hold space for, if you can, visualize people being able to rebuild. Many, many months ago, and I'm in the Florida area, but many months ago in Miami, when we had these horrible hurricanes, many spiritual workers, we sat and we prayed to redirect the storm, to lessen the storm. And I know that our prayers worked because what was projected to happen in the state of Florida, while there was so much devastation, it did lessen. It lessened to a degree. But yes, there are unfortunately situations where people, you still are having to pay the mortgage, you still have to pay these things, even though you don't physically have your property anymore. So one of the ways that you can pray effectively is, even if you're looking on the news and people are telling their stories, pick a family, pick a person, put them on your altar and pray for them every day. Pray for their best and highest good. Pray that everything will work out for their best and highest good. There's a very powerful affirmation by Louise Hay. And for those of you who don't know who she was a very famous metaphysician in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. She's since passed away, but she was very big on positive affirmations. And in the positive affirmation, she would say, everything is working out for my best and highest good. And out of this situation, my best will come. That's something that I affirm, especially in times of tragedy. I'm going to go into the room. Team Salem says, I feel like this mirrors Maui. It actually does. It does mirror Maui. I feel a very similar thing. We talked about this some years ago, that there was some suspicion about the Maui fires and specifically what happened. And that I did get a strong sense and impression that that was deliberate. And there were a lot of people who echoed that, but I felt that spiritually. And I stand on that. That brings me to something else. That brings me to our ancestors. We are in the midst of a mass spiritual awakening. There are those of us who've been actively doing the work. There are those of us who've been walking with spirit since we were children. There are those of us who are waking up. And there are people who are fighting the awakening and wanting to go back to sleep. There are people who are aware of this awakening and they're trying to stop the awakening. The reality of the situation is, though, that the light of God is going to shine through. The reality of the situation is, though, that divine creator is going to bring us through. The reason why I put so much emphasis on having a relationship with God is because that is the thing that will get you through in really, really difficult times. You know, people talk about magic and they talk about spells and they talk about that, and that is all very, very real. But what energy do you think created it? It's the creator of all that is. It's the great spirit. It's God. It's God. God is the maker of magic. We are the instruments, right? Teen Salem says, we need to hold our lands and keep our generational wealth, which is what the powers that be want. And I think what you meant by that is with what the powers that be don't want. And I agree with you. They don't want it. They don't. But this is the thing. We're not just fighting against people. We're fighting against spirit. Powers and principalities seen and unseen. This is a thing about spiritual warfare. And it is spiritual warfare. Okay, just to be clear. When you get caught up in person to person, you forget that there is a spirit on the back of that person, riding that person, right? So instead of making it a me and you and an us and them, it's you and God. It's you and God. And you pray that great spirit nullify that energy. Because also what low level energy wants is it wants to sow division. It wants to sow division. It wants people split apart. It wants people angry. It wants people broken. It wants people hopeless. That's what it wants. I see a couple of people sent gifts. Thank you so much for sending these gifts. I really appreciate that. I appreciate you. Yeah. You know, I want to talk a little bit about Bad Bunny. And sorry, guys, every time I get on a live, I get sniffles. It is only when I get on a live. And it doesn't matter where I'm at in the world, sitting on a couch. Right now, I'm sitting on my bed. Okay. But I want to talk a little bit about Bad Bunny. I know most people know who Bad Bunny is. If you don't, Bad Bunny is a reggaeton artist from Puerto Rico, and also does kind of like the music is sort of like has a trap to it as well. But I used to live in Puerto Rico, beautiful island, beautiful people. For me, it's overwhelming being in Puerto Rico, especially if you descend from slaves, if you descend from Tainos, which are the indigenous folk, and if you descend obviously from the slavers, because when you have those three races that make up who you are, and you're on an island where you know your ancestors came through, and some were dropped there, some were stolen, and you know that they were trafficked, it's difficult to explain. Being in Puerto Rico, for me, living there, is so heartbreaking in some ways, but so healing in others. You know, the island healed me. My ancestors healed me. Knowing that they came from the continent of Africa and they were dropped through the Caribbean and then to the Americas and then to South America. knowing these are my people. We're basically cousins. And all they want to do is live a good life. That's what most people want. They just want to live a good life. They want to raise their kids. They want to serve their creator. They want to make music. They just want to live. Most people are not looking to rule or have dominion over others. And I say this as a spiritual worker who, from a young age, felt the hearts, minds, and souls of people. There are people, though, that are quite frightening because there's so much darkness and negativity. Oh, hi, promoting positive mental health. It's good to see you as well. Team Salem says, I'm sure the energy was horrible, like oppression. Yes and no. Yes and no. Because what you have to understand about the island of Puerto Rico is that the energy of the ancestors is so strong there. Like you have to be there in order to feel it and experience it. So no, it wasn't horrible. But is there a lot of anti-Blackness? Is there misogynoir? Is there people trying to decolonize their minds and then people at the same time being stuck in that? All of that. There is all of that. But the through line is God. Somebody, thank you. Oh, can you tell me why you're so beautiful? I appreciate that. You're beautiful as well. Thank you. Um, you know, but what I will say though about beauty is that it's creator, it's spirit. It's spirit. Because the times in my life where I really struggled and I was angry with God, I would hide a lot more. I wouldn't make myself as visible, you know? Um, But Team Salem, thank you so much. I appreciate everybody for the gifts and things that you're dropping and sending. But yeah, to talk a little bit about the island of Puerto Rico, I definitely think that even if you're not Puerto Rican, visit and go, but also understand that the Puerto Rican people are going through a mass spiritual awakening. And it is on them as a people to determine what direction Creator is guiding them in. So it's not on us, the outsiders, to be able to say what should happen to the island. It's them, you know, it's them. And so I think that that's a huge thing. But, Bad Bunny's album being as successful as it is right now, that is not a coincidence. The album is so difficult for me to listen to because it reminds me so much of our ancestors that were trafficking victims, that were carried in chains and dropped from port to port to port. My landlord in Puerto Rico, she's from there originally, but she lives in Miami. And she was telling me about the history of the island. And she was saying the name came because Puerto Rico, rich port, it's rich. The Spanish came there and they saw so many riches in the land. And that's why it was named Puerto Rico. But in that album, he talks about people that have long gone. And he talks about wishing that he had taken more pictures, wishes that he would have captured those moments, hugging people, kissing people, dancing with them, making music with them. And look at what we're going through right now. Look at California. Look at the Carolinas. Look at our brothers and sisters in Palestine, our brothers and sisters in Israel. People trying to bottle up moments and memories. One of the things the Spirit always tells me is that this life, this physical life, is finite. No one knows exactly the day or the hour when you'll cross this threshold to go to the other side. So while you're here, make the most of what you have. Live and learn and love, enjoy. Team Salem says, I'm Palestinian American. Thank you for being here. Thank you. And I'm so sorry what your people are going through. I really am. But I know the Palestinian people, what's happening, you're going to go down in history. The Palestinian people are going to go down in history as a fight for civil rights for all people. That's what your struggle is teaching us. That we are all God's children, that we are all children of the divine. That's what we're learning. I did not mean to get so emotional here. I didn't mean to get so emotional. I typically don't get emotional when I'm doing readings at all, but I tend to be a little bit removed from it. But there's a lot going on. And no one understands that the souls that are crossing over, they did fulfill their purpose. And they are fulfilling their purpose on the other side. There are many souls that will be helping us from the other side, especially people who in this physical world were having difficulty being here and staying here. Sometimes what happens is a person's body or their mind or whatever's happening with them does not always allow them to have the strength to do the things they need to do in this physical form. And so sometimes they will transition and they will be on the other side as champions and guardians to help us. There are angelic forces all over California, all over Palestine, all over Israel that are watching and waiting and praying. There are souls that are actively being taken home and have fulfilled their purpose. Team Salem says, we are in a brutal European occupation. It's fine. You picked up on my sadness. That's what we believe. Yeah. There is a time of dismantling that, because at the end of the day, we are all children of the divine. And yes, we're different races, different creeds, different colors, different religions. But at the same time, we come from the one source. And so if I'm thinking that because of my race or my religion or my creed or my sex that I am better than you, I have completely missed the mark. You know, there's a channeler, his name is Paul Selig. And one of the things that he says is, you can't step into the light while holding other people in the dark. Right? So if I make you inferior or bad or different, or there's something wrong with you, that does not make me holy. That does not make me chosen. That does not make me it. You know? Salem says, many have witnessed the anomalies that they think they've seen angels. One source is true. Yeah. You know, about a year ago, there was a little Palestinian boy under the rubble, and they got him out of the rubble. And he said that there was an angel that sat with him while people looked for him. And he said as soon as the rescuers came, and mind you, he was under the rubble for about 8 hours. And he said as soon as the medics came, the man disappeared. That, like, they didn't see a man. There was no man there. But the little boy said, no, there was a man. And he came and he sat with me and he talked to me. And he told me I was going to be okay. And he lit a candle for me so I could see. It was an angel. It was an angel. You know, in my experience with angels, they don't always take human form. But sometimes they'll just appear, and they usually appear to deliver a message or to save a life. And then after they've done their job, they leave. And it's like they were never there, because they're God's messengers. They're God's servants. We are the truth. We was here in this land. Absolutely, you are. And the thing is, you know who land belongs to by the way they treat it. Whenever I listen to a Palestinian talk about their land, they talk about the olive trees. They talk about the olive trees. They don't talk about what they have dominion over. They don't even talk about what they're owed. They talk about the olive trees. because trees, they take many years to come to fruition. So arguably, if you're an older person, older man, older woman, planting a tree, you may not be able to harvest those olives and see it come to fruition. But your grandchildren will. Your children will. Your village will. So, yeah. Yeah. So my name is Nicole Bowman. I'm a psychic medium and intuitive artist. Did not mean to get so emotional tonight. Usually when I do readings, like I said, I'm non-emotional. Some people are like, when I read for them, they're like, you're so blunt. I am. I'm a very direct and straightforward reader. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the spiritual awakening that has happened. One of the major things, and we were talking about Bad Bunny in the island of Puerto Rico. I know that his album coming out at the time that it did is divine. Because whether you are Puerto Rican or not, whether you are a Spanish speaker or not, this album was so needed because it talks about what was lost, about what was stolen, about what was taken. But there's also a joy and a bliss and a hope in what we can reclaim and what we can overcome. I pray to the one true living God, the one true living creator of all that is. I do not get caught up in dogma. But if you're asking a question of what religion did my parents practice, I was raised in Christianity, Catholicism to be more specific. But I believe in a one true living God. I believe in the one true living creator. And some may use the term God. Some may use the term Allah. Some may use Great Spirit. Some may use Hashem. That's what I believe in, God, that there is one true living God that has created everything, heaven and earth, the angels, all of us, the land, the animal, the trees. But I also want to be clear that I don't do the proselytizing and I don't do religious debates. Like, I don't have time for that. So anybody who is wanting to debate that, there are plenty of places to do it. This is not the place because I've walked with God since I was a small child. And I've just had so many experiences and so many miracles in my life that I know there is a one true living God. Now, are there other spirits or demigods, if you will, lesser gods, lesser energies in the one true living? There are. But I pray to God. And that's where I'm at with it. And whatever anybody else does is their business. But as for me, that's the path that I walk. So I'm just going into the room. So I know I said I was going to do personal readings, but for some reason, Spirit is leading me to go away from that and not necessarily do that. I might do that another night. If you do have questions, though, oh, thank you, Mama Cindy. You're beautiful as well. I appreciate you. You know what? If you have questions, this could be personal questions. This could be related to California. Just drop them in the comments. Drop them in the comments. I might do something later on where I might do readings by donation. And that's actually what I was going to do tonight. But for some reason, Spirit is not wanting me to do that necessarily. They're just saying, drop the questions. If you have questions, drop them in the comment section. And I do want to say hello to everybody. I know usually when I'm doing a live, I'll go right in and say hello to people. But for some reason, Spirit just wanted me to go right into what is happening. I want to share a book with you. I think there's a book that some people will resonate with. There's a book called A War Against All Puerto Ricans. I highly recommend that if you want to know about Puerto Rican history, you read that book. When I was living in Puerto Rico, I met a girl. She was at university, and she was a poli-sci student, and she was telling me about the history of her island. And she was, the reason why the Puerto Rican flag and the Cuban flag are so similar in the way that they look is because they were fighting for their independence at the same time. And the Puerto Ricans were initially colonized by the Spanish, and then they became a U.S. territory. So that is why, if you go to the island, people do speak English, but generally there's going to be Spanish because Spanish is typically the first language. And A War Against All Puerto Ricans actually talks about that history. It talks about the Puerto Rican people and their fight for independence. And it talks about the question of statehood versus territory versus being colonized. And it's difficult. I say this as a descendant of slaves and indigenous folk and white European ancestry myself. There's so much that was lost. There's so much that was taken from my people. And so even though I'm not Puerto Rican myself, I related to them so much because I have a similar history because my family is from the deep South in the United States. They're from Louisiana and Kentucky, and they're from the Carolinas. So very similar history, very similar past. And the thing is that people will often say, oh, well, race doesn't matter, but it does matter. Race does matter. Creator made all of us different colors, shapes, races, ethnicities, because there is beauty in those differences. There's beauty in all of it. And so if you are African American in this lifetime, if you are Asian in this lifetime, if you are Afro-Latina or Afro-Latino in this lifetime, that means something. And you should show your colors. You should show your light. I always joke about this being a spiritual worker when people say they don't see color, but they say they can read auras. So you can read the energy field around my body, but you can't see my brown skin. How's that work? Right? There's beauty in the differences. But also, at the end of the day, we're one spirit. We're a kaleidoscope. We're all different colors of God. We're God in so many different forms. One of the things that I loved about being on the island of Puerto Rico is the coqui. The coqui is a little frog that is native to the Caribbean. And they sound like a little buzzing. Like you'll hear them. Like if you live there for a long time, you just get used to them. But when you first get there, if you're not used to hearing them, it could be like, what is that buzzing sound? And I remember many years ago, this is before I was doing readings professionally. Before I did readings professionally, I was actually a performer, a singer, a songwriter, an actress. I went to conservatory for that. And I was working at a theater company in Florida. And in this company, we would go into the school systems and we would write plays with the children. And there was this little boy, and his name was Nico, and he was from Puerto Rico. And he wrote a play about the coqui. And in the play, the coqui moves to Florida, and it's really cold in Florida, right? Because he moves to northern Florida. And all of the animals hatch a plan to get the coqui back to Puerto Rico because he's so cold and he's so sad and he's so lonely. And of course, Nico is the coqui. His name was Nico Soto. And it was so interesting because it was a full circle moment. I didn't know at that time that I was going to actually move to Puerto Rico and live in Puerto Rico and have so many experiences that saved my life and healed me. There is healing power there. But of course, there's a lot of pain too. Coming from slavery, not being able to make your own music, not being able to talk, not being able to speak your language, having your language stolen from you. This is why Bad Bunny's album is so important. In Puerto Rico, there's a dance called La Bomba. And La Bomba is a very interesting dance because it's different than other types of dance. In La Bomba, the dancer sets the rhythm, not the percussionist. So if I'm dancing La Bomba and you're the drummer, you have to follow me. You have to follow my movements and make the rhythm. And the beautiful thing about it is that it's not just one person at the end of the day, it's the community that experiences this. And that's what his album is about. It's community. In 2025, we're going to go through a lot economically. Community, chosen family, growing your own food, living below your means, living collectively is what is going to save you. And if you are a digital nomad like me, like I've traveled all over, if you are a van lifer, you may want to consider moving to one place for a while in 2025 and staying there for a good 3 to 6 months. Because there's going to be a lot of upheaval. I'm not going to get super deep into the American election because I don't know, what this app is doing in terms of its censorship. But there's going to be more coming out about what transpired there as well. And it's not about being scared. It's about being prepared, and it's about being aware. I've known and I've shared with people personally and privately for a long time that we are in very challenging times. But I've also seen a lot of people surviving and a lot of people getting through. And when I look at this psychically and spiritually, the people that survive and the people that get through are the people that have community, the people that know how to grow their own food, the people that know how to cook, the people that know how to pray, the people that know how to organize and rally people. If you completely isolate yourself and you have no attachment to anyone or anything, you're going to have some challenges in this year, even if you happen to be a bit of a loner. So you have to keep that in mind. And when I say family, I don't just mean DNA, because I know that some people do not have good relationships with their family, so that's not a possibility. I'm talking more about chosen family. So some of that would be people you share DNA with, and some of that would be friends and people you meet along the way. I know a couple more people came into the room, so I just wanted to share something. There is a business in Pasadena, Florida called Book Alley here on TikTok. Please go follow Book Alley Pasadena. And if you can, donate to their GoFundMe because they're trying to raise money. The owner has lost everything. They're trying to rebuild. I believe their goal is like $25,000, but I sense they're going to need a lot more than that. So whatever you can give, and if you can't give, just share the GoFundMe or follow them or leave a positive comment, push those things to the front, right? Sorry guys, my allergies. I'm like, every time I get alive. Before we go though, on a lighter note, I wanted to talk about Spencer Pratt and Heidi Montag. Okay. Now, if you are a millennial, I'm a millennial, my millennial heart. There was a show called The Hills, and Spencer Pratt and Heidi Montag were on this show. And on the show, everybody hated Spencer. They hated him. They were trying to get Heidi to break up with him, all of that stuff. And they ended up getting married and having 2 little boys. And I've been watching Spencer Pratt on TikTok. Unfortunately, his family lost everything. And they're living in a rental house right now that they had to move into because their house is burned down. And he's been asking people to play Heidi's music so that they can raise money, so they can get a home, so they can do the things they need to do. And it has really warmed my heart to see how hard he goes for his wife. And I even said to one of my clients, if a man doesn't love you the way that Spencer Pratt loves Heidi Montag, he's not for you. And I'm going to say that to everybody. Get you somebody who loves you the way that Spencer loves Heidi, because that man is wearing her merch t-shirts. He's made her #1 on iTunes, and he's doing it for his family. and he's really funny. And it's so interesting because during that time of the hills, people could not stand him. But I think the other thing too is that he's very opinionated. He thinks for himself, and he's not going to mince words. He says what he means and means what he says. So, also if you want to support them, you can stream her music as well. You can go follow them. And I will probably be coming back with more people. I also feel on this app, if you can search Altadena, Altadena is one of the African American communities in California that is really, really badly hit by this. There are a lot of people that have GoFundMes. So you could just pick one. Pick a family, donate, pick a family and put them on your altar if you're a spiritual worker, and pray for their highest best. Zay says to me, he says to me that I'm playing with familiar spirits. No, I'm not. I work with God. I work with God. And I want to talk a little bit about that because I think it's interesting when you are born psychic and born medium and born seeing things and knowing things about people. You see, I had these abilities before people realized they could monetize them. I had these abilities before there were psychic shows. I had these abilities before people were doing readings online. And I was called too sensitive. And Zay says, I say that respectfully. Familiar spirits are evil. But so what Zay is doing is Zay is trying to disturb the energy of this meat. We're talking about healing. We're talking about community. We've had some beautiful conversations about God. And unfortunately, this is what low-level energy does. It tries to throw things off so that we miss the message. So the message tonight, just so we're clear, God is real. Chosen family will save you this year. Growing your own food will save you this year. Listening to your intuition will save you this year. And listening to your inner voice will save you this year. The other message is we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but powers and principalities on high. And so unfortunately, there are people on this app who think that when they are looking at me, then I'm talking to familiar spirits, but they don't understand that they're the familiar spirit and they're the monitoring spirit. And because they don't have a clear purpose in their life and they haven't found it, they're trying to interrupt mine and they're trying to interrupt yours. Don't let people throw you off of your path. See, when you're born psychic, when you're born telepathic, it's very different because you can see through people. That's why people don't like us. And to be honest, I don't pry into people's lives. I just know. And Creator shares with me what I need to know, and I just keep it moving. But do understand that anybody that comes on this page, my page, and tries to destroy what God is calling me to do, you have no power here at all. And everything that you are trying to do will be reflected back to you, and you will have to live it. You will have to walk it. You will have to endure it. And eventually, because no one will give you the time and energy, you will have to leave. So, amen. Does your gift allow you to see and speak to them? Salem says, what do you mean by them? What do you mean by them? Yeah, just type it in the comments. What do you mean by them? Sorry, guys, I'm wiping my nose because, yes, I do speak to the other side. I want to talk about that actually. So here's the thing. As a medium, I don't talk to every spirit. The Bible is very clear about testing spirits to see if they really are. Here's the thing. Whenever I do a reading, I ask God to bring through what is for the best and highest good of that client. So if it is a loved one who has passed on, the Holy Spirit will allow that to happen so that communication can occur. But if the Holy Spirit doesn't want it, it won't happen. So are there people who are mediums who believe that they're talking to a deceased loved one and they actually might be communicating with a demonic entity? Absolutely. Absolutely. Are there spirits that will pretend to be your mother, your grandmother, people that passed away? For sure. That's why you have to test them. That's also why you need to pray. You need to meditate. You need to have a relationship with God. And you have to ask God, what are my gifts and what am I called to do? A lot of times when people just start reading willy-nilly, they don't understand that they're opening a doorway. And if you can't see spirit and you can't really speak to it, you don't actually know what's coming through. That's why you have so many tarot readers that will get freaked out by something and then they'll become like a fundamentalist Christian, or they might convert to like a very, very strict form of another religion. It's because they got so frightened by what happened that they now need structure because they want protection. And, you know, at the end of the day, everything that happens is going to be for your best and highest good. We all have psychic, intuitive, and mediumistic gifts, but everybody is not meant to do it professionally. Just as like I could dance, but I'm not Misty Copeland. You know, Misty Copeland is a prima ballerina, one of the first Black soloists, super, super famous, beautiful. She's a prodigy as far as dance goes. Yeah, I could dance, but I can't dance like Misty. And I wouldn't try to because that's not my path. Team Salem says a lot mess around and find out. They do. Yeah, I mean, I think though, you know, a lot of times when it comes to magic, people are out for power. And, you know, I know so many people that have come to magic after they've been deeply hurt. And see, this is a thing. And I'm pretty sure that person who was trying to do the spiritual sparring with me back is not in the room anymore. But to give them credit for a point, though, there are situations where people will, because they've been hurt, they turn to magic to try to get their power back. And then what ends up happening is they go down this really weird rabbit hole because they start getting into these spiritual matches and spiritual fights with people trying to dominate and control people. You know, but that's the thing. When you work magically against people, you don't necessarily know who or what they have around them. A lot of people have a praying aunt, praying tia. A lot of people have a grandmother who will go in the prayer closet and shut the door. A lot of people have a grandmother that has a hoodoo closet. You don't know what people have around them. And you don't know who they pray to. You know, and I think that that's something that people don't understand. They underestimate. Yes, you can do readings to see if the person has protection and things like that. But there are some things, if that person is cloaked or they have somebody around them that's very skilled, or you're not supposed to be looking into their life and you're looking into it because you feel like you just need to know something, well, you can do what you want, but there's going to be consequences. And that's why I say, just pray to God. Just pray to God. Just talk to God and ask God what you need to do and where you need to be. And I promise you, God will place you where you need to be. 100%. The final thing I want to say tonight, and I got a flash of it. Spirit said, this is the rise of the woman this year. The rise of the woman. I know we've been talking about that a lot. Like a lot of people have been saying, oh, it's the woman's year. And no, they're saying this year. And by woman, they mean the divine feminine energy. They mean that feminine energy that is deeply connected to God, that heals, that watches, that waits, that listens, that teaches. But the other thing about that energy is that it has boundaries and it has rules. I'm speaking to somebody right now. Listen, when it comes to dating, relationships, whatever, friendships, Just because people want a chance with you doesn't mean you need to give them one. Listen to your intuition. Listen to your inner voice. Listen to your body. If you feel like you're jumping out of your skin when you're around somebody, that is your nervous system trying to tell you they are not psychologically safe. As a woman, you have to have boundaries because our womb is the doorway to spirit. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Woman is a doorway to spirit. We are. Our womb is. And I know some of us may not have children or may not be able to or may choose not to have children, but also understand the womb is also the seat of creativity, because in the creation of life is the creativity. It is the artistry. It is the painter and the healer and the mystic and the psychic and the intuitive. It is the creation, right? We are natural creators. And somebody says, yes, and try to leave past relationships behind. Yeah. Yeah. I read for a lot of folk that do get caught up in like a past partnership or relationship. And a lot of times what it is that you're holding on, not even to what was, but what could have been, right? In order to quote unquote get over somebody, you have to let go of the idea you had in your mind and accept the reality of what's actually happening. Because what's actually happening is what it's like to be in a relationship with them. And what's actually happening is not healthy. When you deal with what is actually happening, that's when you can kind of say, do I like this? Do I want to do this? That's when you can decide. That's when you can decide. So I'm going to get out of here in just a second. But before I do, does anybody have any questions or anything like that? Oh, you know what? Let me tell a story. I'm led to tell the story, and I've told it before, but I'm going to tell it again. When I first started reading professionally, this is a long time ago, I did a mediumship reading for somebody in a shop. Client came in and a loved one came through in the reading. The loved one was abusive in life, and they were just as abusive in death. After the reading, client pays, goes outside, gets into their car, try to turn on the car. The client had a luxury vehicle, brand new luxury vehicle, would not turn on. Went into the reading room. The tablecloth where I was reading for them was thrown over. I hadn't been in there. What I learned from that, and Spirit said to me, they said, see, this is why we don't want you speaking to everybody. This is why you don't let everybody into the reading space. The soul was human, but there were things attached to it that were not. And so that's why, as a spiritual worker, I tell clients, with mediumship readings, I can't guarantee that somebody is going to come through every single time. Now, I will share what I see, but the major purpose of the reading is to share what God wants you to know. So if a loved one comes through, it's because God is allowing that. And it's because that loved one, that ancestor is coming through because they're helping me do the reading. But just as, we have evolved ancestors, we have unevolved ones. And just as we have people that can see the bigger picture of your life, we have people that don't. Like, even if we're physically here, you could be the sweetest, kindest person in the world. There are some people that are going to have a negative opinion of you. If I'm doing a reading on you, I'm not going to ask that person's opinion of who you are. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, so when people often think, oh, well, with the loved one, I need to get their opinion on everything. I only want their opinion if their soul is evolved enough to see the bigger picture of who you are. I don't want their opinion if it's biased and it's going to throw you off your path. And the thing is that there are levels to this in the spirit world. So there are some souls that are very evolved and very healed, and there are others that are still going through their maturation process. Now when the souls cross over, they'll let go of a lot of personality stuff, right? So the souls that come through to help are evolved enough to see the bigger picture, right? So even if on the surface, this relationship you're in looks great, that soul may be able to see, yeah, but it's not the best path for her because 5 years from now, she's going to get a job going here and the person's going to push against it. But if she doesn't take that job, she's going to miss a really big part of her mission on earth, and she needs to take that job, right? Are the readings taxing on you? Do you get exhausted or feel drained? They can be, but the way that I do it is that I space and schedule them out and I take breaks, right? And also there are times where I'll just be told by spirit not to read for a person or not to read on a particular day. Like today, for example, I was coming on and as I was praying, I had something very specific in mind that I wanted to do. And as I got on the live, spirit was like, no. And I think it's because it probably would be too taxing because there's so much in the air right now. It's very emotional. And also there were some things you guys might have seen earlier that came into the room, people trying to sway the conversation and create issues and problems. That opens doorways to things. And so yes, they can be taxing, but I take breaks and I rest. And the final thing I will say to people too, make sure you take care of your physical bodies. I know a lot of people are not going to like this, but in many places around the world, you're probably going to have to start masking again. Not everywhere, but a lot of places you will. If you're in California, you need to be masking. You need to be masking because of the pollution. Doesn't matter if you're in a part of California where you're not like directly affected by the fire, you need to be masking. And for those of you who have felt a pull in your spirit to leave California and you're there and you know you need to leave, now you need to start making some plans and provisions to go. You need to make some provisions to do that. I want to talk about Puerto Rico too, because I got a flash of something. There are going to be a lot of Puerto Ricans, a lot of Boricuas that want to go back to the island. Go within and pray. Ask God where you need to be on this planet. And if you feel yourself pulled back to the island, go. But also know that Puerto Rico is going to be going through quite a lot. They've been going through a lot economically. Also with their power grid, because there's a monopoly there. So they only have one company that does the electricity for the entire island. When I lived on the island, it was like super normal to lose power. So I just got used to it. And I lived in San Juan. So I lived in like the epicenter of this, near the airports and all that stuff. And I was used to losing power. Not horribly hit by the hurricanes, but I was definitely used to losing power. And then during the hurricane, sometimes we wouldn't have water. So, you need the buckets and stuff to flush the toilets and it's all sorts of stuff. But if you move back there, you move back knowing and understanding that, and you make adjustments because you have to. But just understand Puerto Rico, there's going to be a lot, not just economically, but there's going to be a lot weather-wise on the island that is going to be very, very challenging. And Spirit is showing me a window of time between now and 2028 with that. But I'm also seeing as far as into like 2032. So if you move back to the island, know and understand that you are going to have not just the economic difficulties, but there's going to be a lot of natural disasters. And there's a lot of things that are just ramping up in terms of storms that are only going to intensify. That's why I say you have to pray and ask God where you're supposed to be. Because even if you go to a place that other people will be like, you shouldn't go there, if God has told you to be there, there's a reason you're meant to be there. Thank you, Mama Cindy. You are amazing too. I appreciate you. Sikana says, are you single? I'm married to God. I don't mean that facetiously. Like It's funny because I was thinking about this. For me, my first focus is my relationship with Creator, then my relationship with family, chosen family, friends, my clients, obviously, because this is my work. And then maybe a relationship, maybe, but there's so many other things that make my life full. So, um, so that is it. I'm just going to surround us with the light of the Holy Spirit. And let me see. Okay. All right, you guys. For some reason, I'm sorry. I was being asked to verify something. So the live is getting ready to cut off anyway. I'm going to surround us with the light of the Holy Spirit. And I just pray that each and every one of you is protected by the one true living Creator, and that Creator orders your steps. If you are able to give or help somebody, do that. If you need help, know that God is your source and God works through people, and pray that God will provide. Surround yourself with light and joy and peace and protection. Have the angels walking behind you, and be well. Ashe. Okay, you guys. And also my allergies are flaring up. So I think we're there.